God, right there. Holy, what is that?
Bryce's obsession with the unknown took him too far this time. Armed with body cameras and surveillance equipment, he went hunting for a creature many believe doesn't even exist. But what he pulled next destroyed his own career. The experiment begins. Bryce Johnson wanted proof, real, undeniable evidence of Bigfoot's existence. On a dark night in an isolated wilderness, he reviewed surveillance footage from his base camp. Armed with body cameras and back-mounted surveillance equipment, his strategy was to watch the watchers. As Bryce scrolled through the footage, his calm demeanor suddenly changed. On the footage, something, or someone, peeked from behind a tree. The silhouette was faint, barely captured by the camera, but it was unmistakably there. Bryce, a 6-foot man, estimated the creature to be at least 7 feet tall, judging by the ferns around it. "It's not bear behavior," Bryce declared confidently, "or any other type of wildlife. This is typical Bigfoot behavior." At this moment, Bryce's determination solidified into an obsession. What others might dismiss as shadows or wildlife, Bryce saw as irrefutable proof of the creature he had devoted himself to finding. Yet, for all his excitement, this footage raised questions that would haunt him. Was he documenting a real creature, or was he chasing a phantom born of his imagination?
I mean, and look at these ferns too right here. I'm trying to just figure out how tall this thing might be. I mean, these ferns sit up to about my chest. I'm 6 foot. Man, this thing could be around 7 feet tall.
A bold theory. The encounter wasn't the end of Bryce's investigation. It was just the beginning. In a conversation with a witness, Isaac, Bryce learned something that shook him to his core. Isaac claimed that Bigfoot had extrasensory abilities. These creatures, Isaac explained, could sense electromagnetic frequencies emitted by cameras and other electronic equipment, which allowed them to avoid detection. Bryce's mind raced. Could this explain why Bigfoot had evaded humanity for so long? Could these creatures somehow detect and outsmart even the most advanced surveillance technology? Determined to test this theory, Bryce devised a plan. He would shield his equipment from electromagnetic frequencies using an EMF tent. This specialized fabric would act as a barrier, blocking all outgoing signals and rendering the surveillance setup invisible to any lurking creatures. For Bryce, this was a turning point. If successful, it would be a revolutionary breakthrough in Bigfoot research. If it failed, it would fuel the skepticism that had already begun to surround his endeavors.
And not only that, but they also have these special powers. It really got me thinking back to when I was wearing that body camera, because when I was reviewing the footage, it's as if this creature knew when to hide, even when I had the camera on my back.
The EMF tent. The setup was impressive, even by professional standards. Bryce constructed a sophisticated surveillance system inside the EMF tent. Thermal cameras, infrared sensors, and parabolic microphones were positioned to monitor every direction: north, south, east, and west. But as the night wore on, Bryce's confidence began to waver. Sitting inside the tent, surrounded by monitors and equipment, he felt an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. Despite all the technology, all the preparation, it was just him and a thin layer of fabric separating him from the unknown. Then, the sounds began. Faint at first, leaves rustling, twigs snapping. Bryce's heart raced. Was it the wind? An animal? Or was it them? Suddenly, on the thermal camera, Bryce saw something. A head peeking around a tree. His pulse quickened as he tried to track the figure, but it disappeared just as quickly as it had appeared. Out of the corner of his eye, Bryce noticed movement on another monitor. Something had swiped past the camera. It was fast, too fast to identify, but it confirmed his growing suspicion. He wasn't alone. Fear sets in. As the night deepened, Bryce's fear began to overtake his scientific curiosity. The sounds grew louder, closer. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, not by one creature, but by several. "It's like even though I feel secure in this tent, it's just an illusion," Bryce admitted, his voice tinged with panic. "This is just fabric. The isolation, The sounds, the shadows. Everything felt like it was closing in. Bryce's once unshakable confidence crumbled as he realized the gravity of his situation. What had started as an ambitious experiment now felt like a life-threatening encounter. The fallout. This experiment made waves in the Bigfoot research community, but not in the way he had hoped. Critics questioned his methods, his conclusions, and even his motives. Was this genuine research, or a desperate attempt to stay relevant in a career that had long since peaked? The entertainment world, too, took notice. Bryce, once a respected actor, became the subject of ridicule. Late-night hosts joked about his Bigfoot obsession, while tabloids published sensationalized headlines like, "From Star to Sasquatch Hunter, the Bryce Johnson saga." Even within the Bigfoot community, Bryce's reputation took a hit. Some praised his dedication, while others dismissed his theories as far-fetched and unscientific. Before becoming a household name in the cryptozoology world, Bryce Johnson had already been drawn to the mysterious and unexplained. His fascination with Bigfoot began long before his involvement with Expedition Bigfoot. As a child growing up in Reno, Nevada, Bryce had heard local legends and stories of strange sightings in the Sierra Nevada mountains. These tales sparked an early interest in the unknown and laid the groundwork for his later adventures. Bryce's first foray into Bigfoot research wasn't for television, it was personal. He took to the wilderness with a small group of like-minded enthusiasts, armed with nothing more than basic camping gear, a notebook, and a cheap camcorder. These initial searches were modest and informal, but provided Bryce with his first taste of fieldwork. He scoured forests and mountain trails, looking for footprints, hair samples, or any other signs of the elusive creature. Although these early expeditions yielded no definitive evidence, they were crucial in shaping Bryce's curiosity and determination. Footprints and howls. One of Bryce's earliest and most compelling experiences occurred during a camping trip in Oregon's Blue Mountains, a region known for its history of Bigfoot sightings. While hiking at dusk, Bryce and his companions heard a series of eerie, guttural howls echoing through the trees. The sounds were unlike anything they had ever heard before, too deep to be coyotes and too sustained to be a bear. Fascinated, Bryce decided to investigate further. The group ventured deeper into the forest, using flashlights to navigate the dense underbrush. After several hours of searching, they came across a muddy clearing with what appeared to be large humanoid footprints. Each print measured nearly 18 inches in length and displayed a distinct arch, suggesting a bipedal gait. Bryce carefully documented the discovery, taking photographs and making plaster casts of the impressions. Although skeptics later dismissed the findings as misidentifications, the experience solidified Bryce's belief that something extraordinary was out there.
Across. Based on the size differences of these, there is no doubt in my mind we have at least 2 Bigfoot moving through this area.
Close encounters in Washington State. Washington State, with its dense forests and history of reported sightings, became another hotspot for Bryce's investigations. During one memorable expedition near Mount Rainier, Bryce and his team encountered what they believed to be evidence of Bigfoot activity. While setting up camp, they found broken tree limbs arranged in a peculiar pattern, a behavior often attributed to Bigfoot as a form of communication or territorial marking. Later that night, they heard heavy footsteps circling their campsite, accompanied by low grunts and snorts. The team attempted to record the sounds, but the creature remained just out of sight, shrouded in the darkness. Another notable incident in Washington occurred during a hike near the Olympic Peninsula. Bryce and a fellow researcher discovered a series of massive claw-like scratches on a tree trunk. The marks were located at a height of nearly 9 feet, ruling out known wildlife like bears. Bryce theorized that the scratches could be a form of territorial marking, further supporting the idea of an intelligent species inhabiting the area. In his quest for answers, he began collaborating with the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, one of the largest and most respected groups dedicated to studying the phenomenon. Through this partnership, Bryce gained access to decades of collected reports, witness testimonies, and research methodologies. One case that particularly stood out to him was the Skookum cast, a plaster impression made in Washington State that some believe captures the partial body print of a Bigfoot. Bryce studied the cast in detail, noting the anatomical features that seemed to suggest a large, muscular creature.
Yeah, I mean, those look
Those look strikingly similar to me. For the most part, these look almost identical. Let's actually take a look at how wide this foot is.
The Ape Canyon incident. The man's research also led him to investigate historical Bigfoot encounters, including the legendary Ape Canyon incident of 1924. In this infamous case, a group of miners claimed to have been attacked by a group of ape-like creatures near Mount St. Helens. Bryce retraced the miners' steps, visiting the remote canyon and examining historical accounts of the event. While no definitive evidence was uncovered, the story remains one of the most compelling in Bigfoot lore. As Bryce's expertise grew, so did his arsenal of investigative tools. He began incorporating advanced technologies like thermal imaging cameras, night vision goggles, and audio recording equipment into his expeditions. One particularly fruitful investigation took place in Northern California's Humboldt County, where Bryce used drone-mounted infrared cameras to scan the forest canopy for signs of movement. The footage revealed several heat signatures that appeared to match the size and shape of a large bipedal creature. Although the evidence was inconclusive, it marked a significant step forward in the use of technology in cryptozoological research. Indigenous knowledge. Throughout his investigations, Bryce has emphasized the importance of incorporating indigenous knowledge into Bigfoot research. Many Native American tribes have oral traditions and legends describing large, hairy creatures that inhabit the wilderness. For example, the Salish people of the Pacific Northwest have long spoken of the Sasquatch, a name that has become synonymous with Bigfoot. Bryce has worked closely with tribal elders to document these accounts, believing that they hold valuable clues to understanding the phenomenon.
It's really interesting because it could explain why finding single Bigfoot tracks are more common than finding groups of tracks.
And that's definitely the case when you're out in the field with gorillas.
Bryce's passion for Bigfoot research has also intersected with his commitment to environmental conservation. He argues that protecting wilderness areas is not only essential for preserving biodiversity, but also for maintaining the habitats where cryptids like Bigfoot might exist. Bryce has advocated for increased funding and support for national parks and wildlife reserves, highlighting the need to safeguard these natural spaces for future generations. In recent years, Bryce has expanded his search beyond North America, exploring reports of similar creatures in other parts of the world. He has investigated the Yeti in the Himalayas, the Yowie in Australia, and the Orang Pendek in Indonesia. These international expeditions have broadened Bryce's perspective and underscored the global nature of the phenomenon. While each region has its unique characteristics and lore, the striking similarities between these accounts suggest a common thread, a tantalizing possibility that Bryce continues to explore. Closest Bigfoot encounters to date. Among the closest Bigfoot encounters on record, the 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film is a cornerstone of evidence. This is undoubtedly the most iconic Bigfoot footage ever captured. On October 20th, 1967, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were horseback riding near Bluff Creek in Northern California when they spotted something extraordinary. Patterson was the first to see the creature, a massive ape-like figure walking upright along a sandbar. He dismounted his horse and began filming with his 16mm camera. The result was a 59-second video that remains the gold standard for Bigfoot evidence. The creature, which later became known as Patty, appeared to have long, dark hair and a barrel-shaped torso. The film also captured its distinct walk, characterized by bent knees and long arm swings. Patty even glanced back at the camera, a moment that sent chills down viewers' spines.
It can sometimes cause some of the substrate, in this case that sandbar, to be forced back up as a pressure ridge because of the arch, giving the foot a much more stable leverage, very different adaptation for walking.
Over the years, the footage has been dissected frame by frame by both skeptics and believers. Some argue the proportions of the creature, its arm length, stride, and muscle movement, are consistent with a living being, not a man in a suit. Others dismiss it as an elaborate hoax, though Patterson and Gimlin maintained their story until their deaths. Even today, experts in biomechanics and special effects are divided, with some concluding it would have been nearly impossible to fake using 1960s technology. Bryce has extensively analyzed the footage, which shows a creature walking along Bluff Creek in Northern California. While skeptics argue that the figure is merely a person in a suit, proponents like Bryce point to the anatomical details, such as muscle movement and limb proportions, as evidence of authenticity. The Freeman footage, 1994. Paul Freeman, a U.S. Forest Service patrolman with a long history of Bigfoot interest, claimed to have had multiple encounters with the creature in the Blue Mountains of Washington state. But in 1994, he captured what he believed was definitive proof. The footage shows a large, hairy figure walking through the forest and briefly pausing to look at the camera. Freeman also found footprints in the area, some over 14 inches long, with clear dermal ridges, a feature akin to human fingerprints. Skeptics were quick to point out that Freeman's long-standing Bigfoot obsession might have influenced his claims, but even seasoned researchers admit the video has a haunting quality.
Walks across, one can't help but be struck by resemblances to the Patterson-Gimlin film. The massiveness of this figure is impressive. This smallish head set low down on the shoulders with massive musculature.
What sets the Freeman footage apart is the location. The Blue Mountains are remote and densely forested, an ideal environment for a large creature to remain undetected. Freeman's encounter also aligns with other sightings in the region, adding weight to the possibility of Bigfoot's existence in this area. The Marble Mountain footage, 2000. As Bryce's interest in Bigfoot grew, he began connecting with other researchers and enthusiasts. This network led him to the infamous Marble Mountain footage, a piece of video evidence captured by a youth group leader in 2000. Bryce studied the footage extensively, consulting with experts to analyze the creature's movements and proportions. This encounter came from an unexpected source, a youth group leader named Jim Mills, who was hiking with his group in the Marble Mountains of Northern California. While camping, they noticed a figure moving along a distant ridgeline. Mills filmed the incident, capturing what appeared to be a large, upright creature walking in a deliberate, steady manner. The figure's size and stride were enough to suggest it wasn't a human. After the sighting, the group discovered massive footprints in the area, leading many to believe they had come across Bigfoot. The footage gained widespread attention, with many comparing it to the Patterson-Gimlin film. The ridgeline setting and the creature's silhouette created an eerie, almost cinematic quality, making it one of the most compelling pieces of Bigfoot evidence captured in the 21st century. The Provo Canyon Encounter, 2012. In 2012, hikers exploring Provo Canyon in Utah had what they described as a heart-stopping encounter. While walking through the woods, they noticed a dark figure crouched near the trees. At first, they thought it was a bear, but as they moved closer, the figure stood up on two legs, towering over the hikers and revealing its human-like form. Startled, the hikers quickly fled, but not before capturing a short video. The clip shows a large, dark figure partially obscured by trees. Though the footage is shaky, it sparked a flurry of online debates, with some claiming it was definitive proof of Sasquatch and others suggesting it was a hoax. What makes this encounter particularly interesting is its proximity to other reported sightings in the area. Provo Canyon has a long history of strange occurrences, from unexplained howls to reports of large, human-like footprints. The Mission, BC Encounter, 2009. British Columbia has long been considered a Bigfoot hotspot, and the Mission area is no exception. In 2009, Randy Brisson, a local enthusiast, reported finding an abundance of evidence near his home, including large footprints and broken tree limbs arranged in peculiar patterns. Brisson later claimed to have seen a Sasquatch in the area, describing it as standing over 7 feet tall and covered in thick black hair. The creature reportedly watched him from a distance before disappearing into the forest. Brisson shared photographs of the footprints with researchers who noted their unusual depth and size. The Mission encounter is significant, not just because of Brisson's sighting, but also because of the physical evidence collected. The combination of footprints, tree structures, and eyewitness testimony paints a vivid picture of Sasquatch activity in the region. While these well-documented cases are among the most famous, countless other encounters add depth to the Bigfoot legend, like the Sierra Sounds back in the 1970s. Ron Moorhead and Al Berry, two adventurers with a deep interest in cryptozoology, were camping high up in the Sierra Nevada mountains when they came across something they couldn't explain. They began recording what they believed were sounds made by Bigfoot. These eerie vocalizations, known as the Sierra sounds, are unlike any known animal noises. The audio features deep guttural growls, eerie whoops, and strange vocalizations that many believe might even resemble a form of language. Linguists and audio experts have studied these recordings extensively, trying to make sense of them. Despite their efforts, the sounds remain a mystery, with experts concluding they don't match anything in the known animal kingdom. The tapes continue to interest both researchers and enthusiasts alike, keeping the Bigfoot myth alive in the public's imagination. Then, there's the Skookum Cast, a discovery made in 2000 in the dense forests of Washington state. Researchers had set up a bait trap, hoping to lure a Bigfoot for a sighting or even a photo. But what they found instead was something even more extraordinary. In the mud near the trap, there was an enormous impression, so large and detailed that it appeared to be the body print of a Sasquatch. The cast revealed a clear imprint of a foot, complete with a heel, toes, and other distinct features. But it didn't stop there. What was most puzzling was the body shape impression. Researchers saw what looked like the outline of a large, powerful body, including an impression of the Sasquatch's buttocks and forearm. This discovery raised more questions than answers, leaving researchers to wonder, what creature left such a detailed, human-like imprint in the mud? Could it be Bigfoot? Or is there something else lurking in the forests of the Pacific Northwest? Moving further east, the legend of Bigfoot continues to thrive in Ohio, where locals talk about a creature known as the Grassman. The Grassman has been a staple of local folklore for years, with reports of a large, ape-like creature seen roaming through the dense fields of the region. One of the most famous encounters occurred in 1978, near Minerva, Ohio. Residents of the small town reported seeing a giant creature, covered in hair, moving through the fields. The sightings were followed by strange howls and the discovery of massive footprints, measuring up to 18 inches long. Some claimed the creature appeared to be humanoid, standing upright, but others said it moved more like an ape, hunched over as it lurked in the tall grass. Over the years, the Grassman has been sighted repeatedly, adding to the collection of strange reports from Ohio. Though no concrete evidence has been found, the repeated sightings and eerie howls continue to fuel the belief that something mysterious is still out there,